Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe and support me. Alara Thorne stood at the edge of the observation deck, her breath catching in her throat as she took in the view of the Interstellar Medical Academy. The station floated in the void, surrounded by an endless expanse of stars, each one a distant sun, home to its own systems, its own lives. The Academy was a masterpiece of architecture, a sprawling complex of sleek, metallic buildings connected by transparent tubes. Ships came and went, gliding in smooth arcs to dock at the various ports, ferrying students, supplies, and knowledge from across the galaxy. She had dreamt of this moment for as long as she could remember. To be here, at the most prestigious medical academy in the universe, was something she had worked tirelessly for. Her acceptance hadn't just been an achievement for herself, it was a symbol of hope for her family back on Earth, a sign that someone from their humble beginnings could rise to the top. Alara was a prodigy, a fact she often tried to downplay. Being labeled a genius from a young age came with its own set of challenges. She was often isolated, misunderstood, envied even. But here, at the academy, she hoped to find a place where she belonged, among the brightest minds of the galaxy. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching behind her. Turning, she saw her new friend, Rhea, gliding toward her. Rhea was from Syra, an aquatic planet known for its vast oceans and towering underwater cities. She had an ethereal quality about her, with smooth, bluish skin and wide, dark eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. She moved with a grace that was almost unnerving, as though she were swimming even when she walked. "You're going to miss orientation," Rio said, her voice soft but amused. Alara smiled, turning away from the window. "I couldn't help it. This place is. It's incredible." Rio joined her at the edge, gazing out at the stars. "It is, but it's also dangerous." Alara raised an eyebrow. "Dangerous?" "Not in the way you think," Rio said, her voice lowering. "The competition here is fierce. Everyone wants to be the best, and some people will do anything to get ahead." Alara frowned, but before she could respond, another figure joined them. Cayenne, the third member of their group, was from Utrax, a planet known for its cybernetic enhancements. He was tall and lean, with metallic implants visible beneath his skin, a mix of man and machine. Despite his intimidating appearance, Cayenne was easygoing and quick to smile. "You two talking about me?" he asked, grinning as he adjusted the device on his wrist. It hummed softly as he checked the time. "We're talking about how you're always late," Rhea teased. Cayenne shrugged. "I'm not late. I just arrive exactly when I mean to." Alara rolled her eyes, but there was a warmth between them that she hadn't felt in a long time. They had only met a few weeks ago during the Academy's entrance exams, but the bond between them had formed quickly. They were a team now, and Alara felt a sense of belonging she hadn't known she needed. The Academy was more than just a school. It was a battleground of intellect and ambition, a place where the brightest minds came together to push the boundaries of science. And Alara, Rhea, and Cayenne were about to face their first real challenge. The lab was sterile, cold, and quiet. Rows of workstations filled with advanced equipment lined the walls, each one dedicated to the study of alien biology. The students, dressed in white lab coats, were focused, their hands steady as they performed intricate procedures on various alien samples. Alara stood at her station, her eyes fixed on the creature in front of her. It was a small, writhing organism, contained within a transparent box. Its skin was translucent, revealing the complex network of organs beneath, and it pulsed with an airy light. The creature was from a planet in the far reaches of the galaxy, known for its aggressive nature and unique biology. Dr. Lyra, their instructor, moved between the stations, her sharp gaze observing the students' progress. She was a tall, severe woman, her gray hair pulled back tightly, and her expression gave away little emotion. She was known for her brilliance and her ruthlessness, and her reputation preceded her. "Careful with that sample," Dr. Lyra said as she passed by Alara's station. One wrong move, and it could escape. Alara nodded, her hand steady as she adjusted the containment field. The creature twitched, its light growing brighter as if reacting to her touch. "I've got this," she muttered under her breath. Beside her, Rhea was focused on her own experiment, her movements calm and precise. Cayenne, on the other hand, was frowning at his workstation, his mechanical hand whirring as he adjusted the settings on his scanner. "This thing's not responding the way it should," Cayenne said, frustration creeping into his voice. Before Alara could respond, a loud alarm blared through the lab, startling everyone. The lights flickered, and a mechanical voice echoed over the intercom. "Containment breach! Containment breach!" The students froze, and for a moment, there was silence. Then, chaos erupted. The creature on Alara's workstation began to thrash violently, its pulsing light growing more intense. The containment field faltered, flickering as the creature slammed against the walls of its enclosure. "Alara!" Rhea shouted, her voice filled with panic. Alara acted on instinct, her hands moving faster than her mind could process. She activated the emergency lock, but it was too late. The creature broke free, its translucent form darting toward her. For a split second, Alara's world narrowed to that single moment. The creature's light blinded her, and she felt a sharp pain as it grazed her arm. Then, just as quickly as it had come, the creature was gone, disappearing into the vents. Alara staggered back, clutching her arm as blood seeped through her lab coat. The room was in chaos, students scrambling to contain the breach, alarms blaring in the background. Dr. Lyra's voice cut through the noise. "Everyone, out of the lab!" Now, Alara, dazed and disoriented, felt Rhea's hand on her shoulder, guiding her toward the exit. Cayenne was at her side, his face pale as he looked at her bleeding arm. "We need to get you to the med bay," Cayenne said, his voice urgent. Alara nodded, but her mind was racing. Something wasn't right. The creature's light, the way it had reacted to her. It wasn't just a containment breach. There was something more going on. As they hurried out of the lab, Alara glanced back at the workstation, her thoughts swirling. What had she just discovered? The med bay was quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the lab. Alara sat on one of the examination tables, her arm bandaged, though the wound had already begun to heal. The medical staff had been efficient, treating her injuries with advanced healing technology. But even as the physical pain faded, Alara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Rhea and Cayenne stood nearby, their faces etched with concern. "You're lucky it wasn't worse," Rhea said, her voice soft. "That thing could have killed you." Alara shook her head. "It wasn't trying to kill me. I don't know how to explain it, but it felt like it was trying to communicate." Cayenne frowned. "Communicate?" "Alara, it attacked you." "I know," she said, her voice steady. "But there was something else. When it touched me, I felt different." Rhea exchanged a worried glance with Cayenne. "Different how?" Alara hesitated, unsure of how to put it into words. The sensation had been fleeting, but it had left an impression. When the creature had touched her, it was as though a door had opened in her mind, revealing something she hadn't been able to grasp before. She felt more aware, more in tune with the world around her. "It's hard to explain," Alara said finally. "But I think that creature was more than just an experiment gone wrong." Before Rhea or Cayenne could respond, the door to the med bay opened, and Dr. Lyra entered, her expression unreadable. "Alara," she said, her voice clipped. "I need to speak with you." "Alone?" Alara glanced at her friends, then nodded. "I'll be fine," she told them, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. Rhea and Cayenne left reluctantly, casting worried glances over their shoulders as they went. Dr. Lyra stood in silence for a moment, her sharp eyes studying Alara. Then, without preamble, she said, "What happened in that lab was no accident." Alara blinked, taken aback. "What do you mean?" "The creature you encountered is part of a classified project," Dr. Lyra said, her tone cold and precise. "A project that goes beyond the scope of what you've been told." Alara's heart raced. "What kind of project?" Dr. Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's not something I can disclose to you at this time. But I can tell you this. The technology you've encountered has the potential to change the very foundation of medical science." Alara's mind spun with possibilities. She had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed sent a thrill of fear through her. "Change it how?" Dr. Lyra's gaze sharpened. "That's for you to figure out. You're one of the brightest minds in this academy, Alara. If anyone can unlock the potential of this discovery, it's you." Alara swallowed hard. The weight of Dr. Lyra's words settled heavily on her shoulders. She had always wanted to make a difference, to push the boundaries of science. But this was something else entirely. "What do you expect me to do?" Alara asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Lyra's eyes gleamed. "Continue your research, but keep it quiet. There are those who would misuse this technology, and we can't afford to let that happen." Alara nodded, though her mind was already racing with questions. What had she gotten herself into? In the days that followed, Alara, Rhea, and Kyan worked in secret, delving deeper into the implications of the healing technology they had stumbled upon. The more they learned, the more they realized how dangerous it could be. Alara's initial excitement was quickly tempered by the ethical dilemmas that arose. The technology accelerated healing, but it came at a cost. The rapid regeneration altered the patient's DNA, making them more susceptible to certain diseases, and in some cases, it even caused mutations. The implications were staggering. If used correctly, the technology could cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. But if it fell into the wrong hands, it could be weaponized, creating soldiers who were nearly impossible to kill. The pressure mounted as word of their discovery began to spread. Dr. Lyra had warned them to keep it quiet, but rumors had a way of slipping through even the tightest security. Soon, other factions within the academy began to take notice. The Atraxians, known for their militaristic tendencies, were particularly interested in the potential applications of the technology. Kyan's mentor, Professor Sin, had been unusually attentive lately, asking questions about their research that made Kyan uneasy. Professor Sin's sudden interest in their work wasn't just unsettling, it was a signal that things were slipping out of their control. Kyan noticed the subtle hints in his mentor's words, the probing questions that dug too deep. The way Zin's usually casual demeanor had taken on a sharp edge. He didn't say anything to Alara or Rhea at first, not wanting to worry them, but the unease gnawed at him. He knew how the Atraxians thought, especially those with military connections, and the allure of a nearly invincible army was too strong for them to resist. Alara, meanwhile, was buried in her research, her mind constantly racing. She barely slept, spending every spare moment in the lab, poring over data, running simulations, trying to find a way to make the technology safer. The ethical questions kept her awake at night. She had the power to change everything or cure diseases, heal wounds that no current technology could. But the cost was too high. The unintended consequences of DNA alterations could spiral out of control. Was she playing God with lives she couldn't fully understand? Rhea was the only one who seemed to hold on to her optimism. To her, the technology was a gift, something that could revolutionize medicine. She believed in its potential to save millions, to end suffering across the galaxy. But even Rhea couldn't deny the risks. The more they uncovered, the more it became clear that the technology wasn't just a medical tool, it was a weapon waiting to be unleashed. Their research had reached a tipping point when the Tyraxian Empire became involved. Tyraxia was known for its aggression, its desire for dominance. The moment they caught wind of the discovery, they dispatched a delegation to the academy. The Tyraxian representative was a tall, imposing figure named Darvik, with sharp, angular features and cold, calculating eyes. His arrival sent ripples through the academy. Everyone knew what it meant. Taraxia wasn't here for the betterment of science. They wanted control. They wanted to weaponize the technology, and they wouldn't take no for an answer. Alara had been summoned to a meeting with the Academy's Ethics Committee, along with Darvik and representatives from the Allied systems. It was a tense, formal affair, held in a star-white conference room overlooking the Academy's central hub. The air was thick with unspoken tension as the various factions sized each other up, each with their own agenda. Darvik wasted no time. "This technology," he said, his voice cold and clipped, "belongs to the galaxy. To withhold it would be a disservice to all sentient beings. Taraxia is prepared to offer the necessary resources to ensure its development and application." The Allied Systems representative, a woman named Ilna with a calm, measured voice, interjected. "The technology is dangerous. We've seen the preliminary data. The DNA alterations are unpredictable, and the potential for misuse is astronomical." Darvik's lips twisted into a thin smile. "Misuse? You speak as though we are children playing with fire." "Taraxia understands the risks, but we also understand the potential. This technology could save lives, or destroy them," Alna countered. "In the wrong hands, it could lead to biological warfare on a scale we've never seen before." Alara sat silently, her mind racing. The room had descended into a debate between two powerful factions, and her voice, the voice of the scientist who had discovered the technology, was being drowned out. She had never felt so powerless. This wasn't what she had signed up for. She had wanted to heal, to push the boundaries of medicine, not to create a tool for war. Her gaze flicked to Dr. Lyra, who sat quietly at the head of the table, her expression unreadable. Alara knew that Lyra had her own agenda, though what it was remained unclear. She had been the one to encourage Alara to pursue the research in secret, to push the limits of what was possible. But now, as the stakes grew higher, Lyra's silence was deafening. After hours of heated debate, the meeting adjourned without resolution. The Taraxians wanted control of the technology, the Allied systems wanted it destroyed, and the Academy was caught in the middle. Alara was left with a sinking feeling that no matter what she did, someone would misuse her discovery. Later that night, as Alara sat alone in the lab, staring at the data on her screen, Kyan entered, his footsteps soft against the cold floor. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there, watching her, before finally speaking. "You know they're going to take it from us," he said quietly. Alara nodded, her hands gripping the edge of the desk. "I know." "They won't stop," Kyan continued, his voice tight. "The Taraxians, the Atraxians, even the Allied systems. They all want it, and they'll do whatever it takes to get it. You can't trust any of them." "I don't know what to do," Alara admitted, her voice cracking. "This could save lives, Kyan, but I'm afraid of what it will become if it falls into the wrong hands." Kyan stepped closer, his metallic fingers resting on the edge of the desk. "We could destroy it." Alara's heart skipped a beat. She had thought about it, of course. The idea of wiping out all the data, ensuring that no one could use it for harm. But the thought of destroying something with such potential filled her with dread. "I don't know if I can do that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to," Kyan said, his voice firm. "If you don't, someone else will use it, and they won't care about the consequences. You know what Professor Zin is like. He's already asking too many questions. And the Taraxians. They'll weaponize it in a heartbeat." Alara closed her eyes, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. "I don't know if I can live with myself if I destroy it." Kyan's expression softened, and he knelt down beside her, his voice gentle. "Alara, you're the only one who can make this call. But you have to think about the bigger picture. You didn't come here to make weapons. You came here to heal." A long silence stretched between them, the only sound the hum of the lab's equipment. Finally, Alara opened her eyes and looked at Kyan, her heart heavy with the decision she knew she had to make. "We'll destroy it," she said quietly. Kyan nodded, but there was no relief in his expression, only sadness. They both knew what this meant. The next few hours passed in a blur. Alara and Kyan worked in secret, erasing the data, dismantling the research piece by piece. Every step felt like a betrayal of the very ideals that had brought Alara to the academy, but she knew it had to be done. There was no other choice. Rhea found them in the lab as they were finishing the last of it. Her wide, dark eyes filled with disbelief as she realized what they had done. You destroyed it?" she whispered, her voice shaking. Alara couldn't meet her gaze. "It was too dangerous, Rhea. We couldn't let it fall into the wrong hands." Rhea took a step back, her face pale. "You don't get to make that decision. This could have saved millions of lives, Alara. And it could have killed millions more," Kyan interjected, his voice hard. "You weren't there in that meeting, Rhea. You didn't see how close we were to losing control." This wasn't about medicine anymore. Tears welled in Rhea's eyes, and she shook her head, backing toward the door. "You betrayed everything we've worked for." "Everything." Alara felt the sting of Rhea's words, but she didn't stop her as she turned and fled the lab. The sound of the door closing behind her felt final, like a chapter in their friendship that had come to a sudden, painful end. Kyan rested a hand on Alara's shoulder, his voice soft. "You did the right thing." Alara nodded, though she didn't feel any comfort in his words. The weight of her choice sat heavy in her chest, and she wondered if she would ever feel whole again. In the weeks that followed, the Academy moved on, though the echoes of the lost research lingered. The Tyraxians left in frustration, and the Allied systems praised Alara's decision, though she knew it was more out of convenience than true respect for her choice. Dr. Lior disappeared, leaving the Academy without a word. Rumors circulated that she had joined the Tyraxians, but no one knew for sure. Alara suspected she would resurface someday, likely with another dangerous discovery in hand. Rhea never spoke to Alara again. She transferred to a different department, and though Alara saw her in passing, the rift between them was too deep to bridge. As for Alara, she continued her studies, though her heart wasn't in it the way it once had been. She had learned the hard way that science wasn't just about discovery. It was about responsibility, about knowing when to push forward and when to stop. One evening, long after the Academy had fallen silent, Alara stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. The weight of her decision still pressed on her, but there was a quiet strength in knowing that she had made the right choice, even if it had cost her everything. Her thoughts were interrupted by the soft chime of her personal communicator. She glanced down at the message, her heart skipping a beat as she recognized the sender. It was from Rhea. The message was short, just a few words, but they carried the weight of a new beginning. "I found a way." Alara stared at the message, a small, hopeful smile tugging at the corners of her lips. Maybe their journey wasn't over after all.